My partner, Dave Erball, who's still with me today, he was the genius with the knowledge, the foreknowledge of hydrogen and electrolyzer, how an electrolyzer worked. As a matter of fact, I was a financial advisor and a farmer before this part of my career, and I never went to college. And so I had no way of understanding what an electrolyzer was. And I was training him to be a financial advisor, and afterwards went to his house to discuss the appointment that we were just on with a potential client. And I saw this weird thing sitting on his desk. And I was like, "What is that, Dave?" He goes, "It's an electrolyzer." And I said, "What's an electrolyzer?" He said, "Well, it makes hydrogen and oxygen out of water and electricity." I'm like, "Really? Well, what good's the hydrogen?" He goes, "Well, the space shuttle runs on it." I'm like, "You're kidding me. We can make that kind of fuel out of water and electricity. Why aren't we doing that today instead of gasoline?" And his comeback was that this was really early on. This was like 2000, I mean, 1999-ish, something like that. And his comeback was, "Well, it takes a lot of electricity to run the electrolyzer, and that's expensive. And then the equipment itself is really expensive." And so those 2 arguments gave me my starting point on how do I solve those 2 issues. Being in financial services, I understood money well enough to understand that if you can amortize the electricity over time, then you could lower the cost of the electricity. So how do you amortize electricity? You do that by buying wind and solar, and you spread the cost of the installation of the wind and solar over time because the electricity, once it's erected, is free.
Mhm.
So that's what gave me the idea to use wind and solar, not so much because it was green, but because I was trying to make my electricity costs drop. But then learning about more and more, the green aspect of it became very important. And then the other part was just a blessing of ignorance on my part, that I was ignorant as to what things should cost. And being a farmer, I used to look at a 4020 John Deere tractor and a diesel tractor, and I would look at it and I know what my dad paid for it. And I was like, I don't understand why that thing costs so much. It's just a hunk of metal molded into something useful, and I don't really understand why it costs so much, and that was the blissful ignorance that I possessed, to not understand the manufacturing techniques and principles that were involved in trying to build something. So that led me to believe that I could possibly build something less expensive. And then when I started looking at the electrolyzers and how they were constructed at the time, there was 2 basic types: alkaline or proton exchange membrane. And proton exchange membrane um, is something that's made with precious metals and rare earth metals that you hear about
Mm.
all the time. So these cost a lot of money, like platinum. Platinum oftentimes is more expensive than gold. So, if you said you were gonna build a gold electrolyzer, it's a no-brainer, it's gonna be really expensive, and platinum is a lot of times more expensive than that. So, they adhere platinum to a substrate in some cases, like Nafion. Nafion is the same thing that they use for bulletproof material, for bulletproof vests, layers and layers and layers of it, and so that's a really expensive substrate. So when you combine those together, you could be as high as between 400 and $600 a square yard to build your substrate. And with alkaline electrolyzers, we figured out how to use a product that we patented, that could only cost $6 a square yard. So and then we use readily made available materials like plastics and stainless steel blends to make the rest of the electrolyzer. So there's just no way that you can make an electrolyzer any less expensive than what we make it. And so lowering the cost of the capital acquisition cost of the products, because I was a financial advisor, was really important, because it doesn't matter how great hydrogen sounds if the end user can't actually write a check and make money from buying your product, you're not gonna sell very many of them.